Yo, what's up? Another trade recap for y'all. How I made $5,200 across 6 accounts, right? This one's gonna be really saucy, so I hope you're able to gain something from by watching it. And yeah, hopefully there's good information for y'all. Or there is gonna be good information. So pay attention, man. Here we go. Let's get into it right here. And let me do this real quick. Up, down, boom, make sure we're good, right? All right, so first off, let's show P&L, right? So I'm adding another 3 accounts. I have a lot of accounts, but I'm just trading these 3 accounts with them because there's some 50Ks that I'm trying to get rid of, so the P&Ls are going to be a little bit bigger that y'all are going to be seeing. So you can see it made 1,000, 2,000 on this account, and then just 500 on the other ones. These are express account, all these are express accounts, and then here's the calendar. See, P&L calendar, boom, that was the last trade recap. This is today. Today I did take another trade on the other account, $4,000 trade. I don't know why it's not right here, but yeah, y'all know. All the trade recaps are up. So, and then these are executions right here, right? So we entered right here, and then we entered around 7 p.m. New York time, and we exited like 10:45 up there, as you can see. And yeah, this was a trade. I'm gonna give you all like the parameters behind it, the reason I entered it, why I was like willing to hold this trade for so long, how I knew that it would run for so long, and yeah, all that good stuff. So first off, let's start off with technical analysis. Let's just go on NQ so I can kind of do the annotations with y'all so y'all can see what I was looking at, right? So going into the day, we had a whole bunch of buy side liquidity to the upside that I wanted to be swept, right? Let me show y'all real quick. Going into the day before we gap down, this is when market opened. We had all these low resistance highs right here, right? Low resistance liquidity. And this was a really strong draw on liquidity, but I didn't want us to come up here before sweeping some type of sell side, right? So I wanted some type of sell side manipulation to the downside, which would be these lows, right? So this is what I was looking at coming to the day. I had my levels of interest, my draws on liquidity. So now I was just waiting, right? We ended up gapping down, all right. I wanted to originally take the short down to those, but I did have a plan if we gap down, right? So this is a daily order block right here. Daily order blocks, daily fair value gaps. You need to make sure you're grading these and paying attention to how we're reacting from these levels, right? So you can see this is the upper quadrant of that daily order block, how we bottom tick that. And then we also had this daily VI, which is basically just a new day opening gap right here, I believe, yeah. But when it's on the daily chart, you can just, same difference right here. And then you can grade that right there, okay? So, boom, tactical analysis of things, right? We gap down, we tap that daily VI while we're simultaneously sweeping all these low resistance lows. Boom, we gap down, right? So immediately in my mind, I'm like, okay, what's going on the order flow side of things, right? Boom, right here, you can see I have it circled. We came into this value right here, and these are just chunks of, let me delete that for you. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Oh, man. Okay, there it is. These are just chunks of value right here that basically buyers and sellers agree or disagree on these levels, right? So you can see in these chunks of value how we're literally bottom and top taking, literally just playing within the range of value. We'll come outside of it and we'll reject up. We'll just come outside of it and then reject down, right? We'll have failure swings, boom, we'll come into it, failure swing down, and we fail to accept back into it, and then we pump up, right? So this is what I'm paying attention to. I want to see how we're accepting value. I know we're tapping the daily order block. I know there's a VI that we're going to possibly candle flip from, but I want to see how we're accepting value right here. So what I'm looking for is a break and retest, right? And this is what ES looks like, and this is what NQ looks like. Their value, it kind of differentiates just a little bit, but you can get the same kind of idea. This blue shaded part is value. We dipped outside of value, as you can see right here, tapping into this little ledge right here, which is a smaller portion of this, and then we immediately came back into value. So that's telling me that, hey, like, we're not willing to go any lower than this, and we probably want to traverse the full range of this, at least this high volume node, right? So seeing all that, right, I'm like, okay, now what do I want to see out of ES? So since ES is inside this newfound value, what I want to see is us break and retest out of this value, okay? Break and retest. So whenever we have this initial pump above this VI, the reason I don't enter is because I know we can just have a failure swing out of that. We could have a failure swing back into lower prices, right? So I want to make sure we get that retest and then we push out aggressively out of it, okay? Boom, we ended up getting that. We ended up getting that push back up, right? And then what my actual entry was deprived off of was this BPR right here. BPR is just whenever it's overlapping with a fair value or inverse fair value gap. ICT teaches that if there's a P to array overlapping with a quadrant level, that becomes a high probability P to array right here, right? So you can see this BPR is overlapping with these quadrants levels. This is a smaller quadrant, so it's kind of like messy, but usually you'll see like a fair value gap overlapping with CE of like this. That would become a high probability fair value gap, right? For price to push off or something that you would want to enter off of. So you can see this 3-minute BPR is overlapping with this upper quadrant of this VI right here. Not only is this a break, not only did we break and retest that high volume node and then push out of it, we created this BPR above this VI, retested it, and then pushed out of it, right? So that was enough confluence for me to enter this trade. As you can see, I actually got a late entry because my accounts weren't freaking connected, so I had to like manually connect every single one of them. So I got a later entry than I should have, but this was the entry, right? And why was I comfortable holding this for so long, right? Why was I comfortable holding this long for so long or overnight? Stop was right here because after we broke and retest that value, I wanted us to start using this VI as support. I didn't want us to dip back into it, and if it were going to do that, I would just look for a re-entry, right? So why did I not go break even once we hit this new day opening gap how I did the other day? And why did I hold it for so long, right? Why was I comfortable holding this like way up here, right? And the reason, right, I did not go break even as soon as we mitigated this new day opening gap how I did on Friday, was because Friday was a very, very high confluence setup as well, but I knew that we would most likely need a little bit of room and my entry was not as well as it should have been, but we were probably going to need some room to like get into this, right? So we would probably mitigate it, come back out of it, right? So I was okay and comfortable holding my stop and keeping the risk on the table for me to give this trade a little bit of room, because we had all these high confluence P to arrays to push price back up if we were to come back down, right? Once I went break even once we retook this high, and then we reclaimed the new day opening gap, meaning we started pushing back into it. And the reason I went break even there is because, okay, once we had this initial push out of it and then we broke back in, this is showing that like sellers do not want to go any lower, obviously, and we want to start using these quadrant levels as support instead of resistance. At first they were being used as resistance, and then we totally disregarded that. So now we should start using this P to array to the upside, right? And you can see we started using it as support, right? These quadrant levels were holding really nicely above consequent encroachment of this new day opening gap right here. Boom, I was asleep at this time. We freaking pumped. I was at break even already, or we dumped, right? And I literally almost got break even, and then we literally bottom ticked the lower quadrant, and then we continued up, right? So why was I comfortable holding this trade so long? So this is, I guess it was more of it was a pretty obvious trade. I think we had a whole bunch of targets to the upside, right? On ES, we had 2 unfilled new day opening gaps. So meaning like this original new week opening gap that NQ filled last week, ES hadn't filled it. It hadn't filled it yet, and it also had this initial new day opening gap that we had just created. So we had 2 draws on liquidity to the upside, as in gaps, right? And then we had all these low resistance highs up here, right? So the strong on liquidity was so strong to the upside, I was like, or the draw on liquidity was so strong to the upside, there was really no reason to come back down here and do anything. Like there was nothing to do right here, right? There was absolutely nothing to do down here unless we were just going to resweep these lows and continue up. There was nothing to be done down here, right? So that's why I was comfortable holding this trade overnight, and why I was okay, like literally going to sleep and just setting TP and stop loss, right? This was also a Asia session trade, so I only risked 30% of what I usually risk, right? So if it were to have loss or to have like anything like that, I would still trade New York session and be able to risk what I usually risk, right? But yeah, that's why I was able to hold this trade for so long. Draw liquidity was just so strong. There was absolutely no reason to take profits early or anything like that in my eyes. And yeah, we were able to catch 400 points, damn near 400 points, right? And probably take all-time highs here pretty soon. But yeah, this is usually what Mondays look like. They look choppy, one-sided, and knowing that, I'm like, that's just another added confluence to my trade. Like we're probably just going to be a trendy day. This is usually how Mondays play out. This is just from seeing like how markets move, right? Like seeing how like, you know, day-to-day things will play out. Usually Mondays, this is what they look like, right? There are Monday reversals. I'm not saying that it never happens, but more often than not, it's gonna look like choppy and one-sided, right? Also, we were in this huge range, right? And I wanted us to literally just sweep those lows and play to the other end of that range, because again, there is nothing to do down here, absolutely nothing to do. And also the 4 hour, by the time I was entering, the 4 hours was literally flipping to the upside, and I was like, wow, like this, there's nothing down here. We have this 4 hour fair value gap. Whenever there's a VI within that fair value gap, you have to include it. Right there, you can see that it was literally just perfect A+ setup, right? And yeah, that was the trade idea. We still have these relative equal highs up here, and then these are all-time highs, right? But you know, we'll just see what we do from now going into tomorrow. You know, it's FOMC week, so we still have a lot of things to do. But yeah, that was basically the basis of my trade. You can see how we kind of accept value here. I'll show you what that looks like for people that trade order flow, right? We kind of have a failure swing down, and then we reclaim it, and then we're holding this area, right, this ledge really well. Like we're just holding it, and then we just spike up and shoot up. And we come back down, failure swing again, and then we shoot up, right? So this is why a lot of the times when I'm entering off things like this or using them as a confluence, I don't just say, oh, we're breaking value and we're gonna go lower. I wait for a break and retest, and I make sure we're gonna go lower. Like if we were to have broken it and then retested it and then continued lower, okay, right? But in this case, you know, we just had a failure swing. So you can't just jump the gun on every entry. You have to make sure you're waiting for confirmation, especially during New York or during Asia session, right? And this is kind of what those other levels look like, right? So this is what I use a lot of time, these as confluence as well. Like if it were New York AM session, probably would have gotten an entry like somewhere around here. Yeah, perfect, right there. We got that nice little break here. We got a retest and a punch up, and then we just didn't get any like retest of a fair value gap or anything, but things like this, right? So that's basically just value, right? That's volume profile right here. This is basically what I just not base my trades off of, but it gives me a deeper understanding of what I'm seeing in the market. So that's that. I showed P&L executions, right? Key takeaways from this is grade your PD arrays and pay attention to overlapping PD arrays, that lower time frame PD arrays that we create, right? So you see how we created this lower time frame and it's overlapping with the quadrant level of this higher time frame PD array. That's a high confluence. That's a high confluence. That's a high confluence PD array. Oh my gosh, right? And again, just understand, like, don't be trying to take all the risk off the table instantly. Know what you have to do. Know, like, okay, if the trade comes down here, is it going to be invalidated? No, we still have all this to work within, so I'm just going to give it a little bit more leverage, right? Things like that. But biggest key takeaway, start grading your PD arrays and look at overlapping PD arrays. That's the biggest thing that I say. Like, that alone is such, like, they give so high confluence entries. Let me see if we can find one on ES right here, actually. Let's make sure we're looking at the 5 minute. Right? Let's see. Oh, there's really none. I mean, if you missed that original entry, yeah, there is right here. It's not very good. Right? Oh, it's not very good right there. See if there's anything on the 15 minute. I mean, we had this overlapping VI, but this is implied fair value gap right there. I mean, something small. It wasn't really clean. This price action wasn't the best, but things like that. Yeah, we had this overlapping 15 minute right here, right? What you want basically is a majority of the PD array to be overlapping within the quadrant level. Like if any part of it is overlapping, it's okay, but you want a majority of the PD array to be overlapping basically. But this would still be valid right here, right? Things like that. Anyways, that's how I made $5,200 today. I hope y'all enjoyed this trade recap. And I'm gonna be making some more informative videos. So yeah, there you go.